Hello, everybody, wherever you may be. My name is Larry. My call sign is Kilo 7 Hotel November. I'd like to welcome you back to my shack. This is Ham Radio Live Show 57. If you would, my friends, please hit the subscribe and the bell icon. Bell icon will remind you when we go live. Try and go live as much as possible. This is the real ham radio life, not a whole bunch of edited content, where they make tons of contacts that might take them hours to make. This is really what it's like, but we also like to show you products, things that will help you. Now, one of the things that trouble many ham radio operators, and I mean many, is RFI. It's radio frequency interference. It's something that usually comes from man-made source. For example, it could come from a transformer, might come from a plasma television. It can even come from your washing machine, your front loader. Yeah, it can do that too. It can also come from unlikely sources. Now, in my circumstance, I turned off all the breakers to my home, made sure it wasn't an internal RFI source. Once I cleared that up, the next step was to say, okay, there's a power box outside my house. That's got to be the problem. No. Ended up, the power company sent a technician out with this like $6,000 gizmo and a whole bunch of directional antennas and found out that it wasn't that power box at all. In fact, he drove all through the neighborhood. He kept finding the noise source was near our home. Ended up that it's near it's in my next door neighbor's yard. And he's a good guy. He served in the military, bless his heart, over 23 years. Master Sergeant, hardworking guy. And he has a waterfall volume pump controller. Now, you'd think, no way. But yeah, it really does. I mean, the type of RFI that I'm getting on my screen, and I've talked, a lot of folks tell me, get rid of your RFI problem first. Well, that sounds good, right? Look at this picture of what my RFI screen usually looks like. See the repetitive lines there, the white lines? That's RFI. And that's coming from that waterfall volume pump controller. Now, unless he takes it down or replaces it, or somehow if there's a suitable Faraday cage for it, lined with copper, it just will not stop that RFI. It won't. So there is a way to still work if you have a problem like I do and you want to stay on the air. It's called a phase cancellation device or a phase antenna cancellation device. Now, MFJ makes a great product, okay? It is called the MFJ 1026. They make two of them. This is important. Now, this is the 1026. You can recognize the 1026 very easily because it has the preamp. That's important. The preamp is connected to the phasing antenna. That's a big deal because the phasing antenna sometimes needs to work a little harder than your main antenna does to be able to get out the noise. Now, what does the back of the MFJ 1026 and the 1025 look like? The 1025 doesn't have the preamp. Keep that in mind. If you've got pretty nasty RFI like I have, go for the 1026. It's a great product. And I have, by the way, the TimeWave ANC4. There's no comparison between these two, in my opinion, okay? The 1026 flat out beats it. And I've got both, okay? Here's the back of the 1026. You can see it has a main antenna SO259 connector there. It has the radio connector, which goes directly to your radio. So it's going to go right to your rig. It has something then called the TR control. Now, that's a transmit receive controller to protect the 1026. Now, you might ask, why does it need that? Well, the reason why is when you key your microphone or your CW key or your RIDI or your FT8 or whatever you're using, you want to protect this device from a quick shot of RF because it can destroy this unit. It has a fuse system in it that's a little different than most. It uses a lamp, really, an LED lamp to use to be that kind of point where if it gets too much RF in it, it breaks the lamp off. It burns the element up inside so you don't ruin the rest of the device. Okay. So make sure whenever you use one of these, please hook up your TR control, which is an RCA jack, hook it up to your PTT control on the back of your radio. That's your push-to-talk control, okay? Next to that is the auxiliary antenna. This is your phase antenna, okay? This is the separate antenna. You're not going to transmit from this antenna. You still transmit from your main antenna. Next to that SO259, you're going to see the, sorry, I keep on saying PL259, sorry. You're going to see a regular RCA jack that you can use for a phase antenna as well if you want to use a long wire, okay? You have the option to do that. Then it's got the 12-volt DC. It does come with the power wall wart, and it is choked. So it has a nice RF choke protector on the end of it. Of course it would. It's supposed to get rid of noise, not add more of it, right? That's the whole point of it. Now, MFJ suggests when you put this together, it has to go in line. Now, this is extremely important. The 1026 goes between your rig and your antenna tuner. If you have an optional antenna tuner or an external one, you want the 1026 to be sandwiched right between them, okay? So the antenna comes out from your backyard or your roof or wherever you have it, goes into your tuner, from the tuner into the 1026, from the 1026 directly to the receiver, okay? A warning is included in the instruction manual. Says, if an antenna tuner is used, always install the 1026, the MFJ 1026, between the transceiver and the tuner. Never install the MFJ 1026 between the antenna tuner and antenna. Never use the MFJ 1026 in conjunction with any internal antenna tuner unless the SWR without the tuner is less than 2:1. Okay, what does that mean? It means use resonant antennas. It means that if you're going to be on a band where you're going to be transmitting and receiving, be sure that that part of your monoband or your antenna you're using has a 2:1 or less impedance. That's essentially it. Something else that's important from the MFJ book on this tuner is here. It talks about location. Where do you put the phase antenna? All right. If the desired, we're like a paragraph down here, okay? If the desired application is the removal of distant interference, say you've got a power plant 1.5 miles away, maybe it's a manufacturing industrial area, right? It says close spacing is desirable. Close spacing of the antenna and your phase antenna produces a wider and more stable null. Spacings of 1/2 wavelength or less are most desirable when nulling distant interference or peaking distant signals. Yeah, you can actually make this increase your incoming RF signals. Pretty cool. It's like having a preamp. Now, the second paragraph below that says, if the primary problem is removal of local noise, now that's similar to what I have here, it is preferable that the noise, which is auxiliary antenna, hear the noise much louder than it hears desired signals. The noise antenna should be located as close to the noise source as possible, so the noise antenna picks up the least amount of desired signal and the largest amount of noise possible. Now, it goes on to say, in this case, the polarization of the antenna is unimportant and the spacing between antennas can be any convenient distance. Now, what does that mean for new hams? There's two kinds of polarization when you receive and transmit. Now, a dipole, if you have a wire antenna and it's in an inverted V, right? It's going to be transmitting and receiving horizontally, okay? So the wave bands that it receives on the air from other stations is going to be from the horizon. It's going to be horizontally polarized. If you're using a vertical antenna or an antenna that's a dipole that is put into a vertical configuration, that will mean it's vertical polarization. Why is that important? Well, if you're trying to peak signals with one of these, meaning increase the gain that you receive from your receiver, you want to make sure you use the same polarization. So if you want to increase your RF coming in, make the signals louder, then use the phase antenna. Make sure it's the same polarization as your transmit antenna. If it's a vertical transmit antenna you use, try and use a vertical phase antenna. If you're using a horizontally, use a horizontal phase antenna. Even if you have a dipole, you can make it vertical by just mounting it straight up and down. It's now vertical. Otherwise, put it on, make it a flat top, make it a inverted V, you've got horizontal. So in my case, let me show you real quick here what I deal with on my end, all right? And I'll explain how it works. All right. First of all, how does a phase antenna work? Remember how radio signals travel. Now remember they're electromagnetic, right? So you have the electrical sine wave that goes up and down depending upon any frequency that determines how much fits into the wavelength, okay? That's why it's called wavelength. Now there's two phases. It has a positive and negative phase, goes up and down and up and down over and over again, right? Well, the phase antenna essentially takes your lower part of this phase, lower part of the phase, and it will help to null noise out here. Your regular antenna here is still going to pick up the signal. Here's the amplitude line. So you're going to be able to use the amplitude, that's the signal. You're still going to hear it. It's just that the phasing part from your vertical antenna, for example, in this case, all right, it's going to go up. It's going to still pick that up. The phase antenna takes care of the noise by getting rid of the part over here where everything goes downward. I have to remember, everything to me is a mirror image of what you see on the screen. So over here basically is the phase antenna. It takes care of this part of it right in there, okay? It gets rid of it. So it lowers that down but keeps your amplitude. Now, when you use your phase antenna, if you've got a local noise source, put it between the noise source and your main antenna. If the purpose of it is to catch distant, RFI maybe from in town somewhere, you can always do that. You just need to put it somewhere convenient. If possible, it'd be nice to put it in the direction of the noise if you know where it's coming from. Makes it simple, all right? Now, this is a wonderful product. I've found it to be exceptionally effective. And I got to be honest, I have extreme RFI issues. They are extreme. Again, take a look at my typical daytime screen. This is 40 meters. Now, it's dependent upon which band I'm on, determines how much of those white lines appear within my spacing. Typically, I use 200 kilohertz. So, depending upon what frequency band I'm on, will determine how many of those white lines that I see. All right, let's find out how to use it. This is what the 1026 looks like. And you see a little bit of my old American Top 40 records from when I was in radio there. Those are cool, by the way. It's neat to listen to the old 80s stuff from Casey Kasem. And yeah, that is it, sitting on top of the MFJ box. So this is the rig. Now, I'm going from start. I'm going to start from scratch and show you how this works. So how I'm going to do this is I'm going to combine the screens. All right. So you can see both the MFJ 1026 being used at the same time that the rig screen changes, because you're going to see how the rig screen will change. It's kind of cool how that works. So the goal here is to show you both parts so you see both parts and be able to give you the opportunity to enjoy both elements. Okay, that's the whole point. So we'll add the screen that has the MFJ as well as the rig that'll show you what's going on. So let's get that together. We're going to put it underneath the phase antenna control box, which is the MFJ 1026. By the way, something to let you know too, in this case, the MFJ 1026 does come with I'm going to give you a little higher shot of the 1026, hopefully here. So the MFJ 1026 does come with a antenna, a whip antenna you can put in the top of it, which allows you to null out noise from inside your house. It's pretty cool, and it does work. If you use it, you're going to want to keep the pins exactly as they come from the factory. If you buy a used one, open up the case and make sure that the jumper is on jumper 2. If you're going to use it for external noise outside your home, move it to jumper number 1. That's something very important. So let me turn up the audio. You're not going to hear much right now. I'm going to first start out by using only, I'm going to take a measurement. So I'm going to go to the main antenna gain, and you're going to see everything really get loud on the screen. Watch. Now, the first thing you want to do is you want to look carefully at your SWR meter when you've got the main antenna all the way maxed up, okay? In this case, I'm between, and I'm right on top of one of the noise sources from the pump, okay? So I'm right about an S7 peaking to S9. So I know now my reference. So I turn down the main antenna. Everything goes away. Now I go to the phase antenna. I tune that up. I'm now going to match the noise as best I can to try and get the noise to match. And here's where things get interesting, because it shows why the preamp's important. Let me get the camera in real close on the S meter, okay? Now here's the S meter. This is the preamp off. This is just using nothing but the auxiliary antenna, all right? So the auxiliary antenna is maxed. I mean, it's totally maxed, okay? So you can see we had noise before that was between S7 and S8. Now, this is why I wanted this one, not the 1025, because it's missing the preamp. Take a look what happens when you don't have the preamp on the phase antenna. Watch the meter. See, the S meter goes down to S3 to S5. And see, we want more. So there you go. Now we're real close to where we are with just the phase antenna. Okay? So next one we're going to do, I'm going to move the antenna, the main antenna up till you see a little bump in the SWR meter. Okay? Just going to wait, and we're going to add both antennas. This adds the vertical, and it's going to add the phase. Let's watch for the needle bump. There it is. Okay? There's the needle bump. From here, we want to move the phase control. Okay? Watch the screen and watch the meter. We're slowly adding some phasing to the antenna to try and make the noise go down from S7 to S8 was where it's at. Now, see, now we've dropped all the way down to about S5. So we've lost about 1 S unit. Excuse me, almost 2. Almost 2. So keep moving. Keep moving. We're adding a little more phase. And if you find that you're not getting enough of a drop, this has a way of changing the phase angle completely. Okay, we're going to be right there. That's going to put us about between S5, S6, kind of around S6. Okay, right around S6 here. You have the ability on this to then change the phase angle. Now, the phase angle is this button right here, and watch what happens. See everything get louder? It's because the phase angle of that antenna has now changed 180 degrees. Not in terms of a sine wave, but in terms of the way it picks things up. So now we'll again adjust the phase antenna gain only. We're just messing with the phase antenna, not the gain itself, but the phase antenna, the amount of degrees that phase antenna is searching to drop things, okay? So keep an eye on the S meter. This is kind of one of those things you have to play with a little bit. You'll get used to it as you get used to using it. And as you get used to using it, you'll find it to be really effective, okay? So again, now we've bumped up to S9. Now we found it going down. Still going down. And it's a very narrow spot. It's right there. All right. Now we're all of a sudden down to S5. Okay? Look at that, how that worked. Isn't that brilliant? So from here, we're going to mess with the gain on just the phase antenna. We're going to try and bring the gain down on the phase antenna a little bit. A little on the phase. Keep in mind, we started between S7 and S8. We're going to move the main antenna gain down a little bit. Look at this. S2. S2. Now, again, just the gain on the phase antenna. That's all we're doing. Okay. Now, you would think if we moved up the gain, it's going to make a difference. It will. It's going to bring up the noise. We don't want that. We need to find the exact level of phase that's going to bring down that S meter. That's why it's important. Okay. So now we're down around S2, right there at S2. Again, check the phase. See if you can bring it down a little more from there. It does take a little time and a little effort, but if you're a contester or you like to work DX, you got a lot of RF, right? A lot of RFI bugging you, right? This is a great item to have. Now we're dipping below S2. And by the way, we're increasing the phase. So we found a little spot where we went below S2. We didn't have to go all the way up on the phase. We bumped it. If we adjust the phase, see it now goes above S2. Bring the phase back where it was, right about S2. Now we're going to move down a little bit on the antenna gain. And look at that. Look at that waterfall. Look at that. Look at the signals that popped in. Now, I've got to tell you folks, I've been doing DXing a long time. Been on the radio a long time. Been listening to ham bands for a long, long time. Many years. You see what now the band looks like? There's a reason when I went to get a noise canceller that I wanted the 1026 over the 1025. Both are great products. Please don't get me wrong. Both are great products. If I had just minor RFI, little hiccup here or there, 1025, no problem, easy. But because I have huge amounts of RFI that go up to S6, S7, and they last for about 4 to 6 kilohertz wide, I need something stronger. So I needed that preamp on that phase antenna. That's a great example of just how well this system works. Again, look at this. There's the signal now. That's the signal coming in on the screen of the Yaesu 101. And you remember where we started with? Yep. That's why. This doggone thing may be the next thing you should buy for your ham shack. It works that good. You have RFI issues? Knock them down. It will take care of them. It's easy to use. It just takes some practice on turning the knobs. How hard is that? You already have your license. Get one of these things. Great Christmas present. MFJ 1026. It is a 3 thumbs up from me. Don't have 3 arms, but if I could, I would. That's how good it really is. It should be the next thing your shack has if you have RFI issues, because it will null it out and it will get those bands open so you can make QSOs. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you next time on Ham Radio Live. Until then, God bless you and thank you for watching Ham Radio Live. Goodbye, everybody.